Most men fail because their approach is flawed. They try to force a result instead of forming a bond. But the right questions don't cause tension, they spark interest. When you handle it correctly, she doesn't move back. She moves closer. I'm going to begin this video with a raw truth. Most guys aren't scared of closeness. They're scared of hearing no. They dread that instant when they take a chance and the woman withdraws, becomes distant, or says something that ruins the mood entirely. But what if I told you something different? There's a method to ask a woman for physical closeness without sounding desperate, without creating tension, and without the risk of being turned down. A method rooted in understanding human behavior, not tricks, not pressure, but knowing how women emotionally decide when they're comfortable and who they want that comfort with. And that's precisely what you're about to learn. Now, before we dive deep, let me grab your attention with a fact almost nobody realizes. Women don't reject intimacy itself. They reject the emotion attached to it. If the emotional vibe feels off, the response is no. If it feels right, the response flows naturally. And the technique you're about to discover makes it feel right. Now, let's go further. The core principle, understanding how women decide. Every guy who gets turned down for closeness usually makes one of these errors. He asks too bluntly. He asks too early. He asks with anxious energy. Or he asks without building emotional anticipation first. And here's the hidden truth. Women don't decide based on logic. They decide based on emotion. The moment she feels secure, understood, wanted but not forced, emotionally in sync, the door opens. So today, I'm going to show you the subtle psychological way to ask for closeness without ever sounding needy, without making her uneasy, and without risking that painful rejection. But before we get into the methods, let me explain something vital about female psychology that most men completely overlook. Women feel desire differently than men. For most men, attraction is visual and instant. You see someone appealing and your body reacts right away. But for women, attraction builds in layers. It grows through situation, emotion, safety, and anticipation. This is why a woman can meet a guy, feel nothing, and then 3 weeks later find herself very drawn to him. It's not that she was being tricky, it's that her attraction needed time to grow through emotional experiences. Understanding this changes everything about how you approach closeness. Because once you know her desire grows through emotional layering, you stop rushing, stop pushing, and start creating the conditions where her desire naturally rises. Let's begin with the most powerful rule. The first technique, never ask directly. Let me restate this because this alone can transform your results. Never ask a woman for closeness in a direct way. Women don't respond well to straight requests, they respond to emotional invitations. And there's a huge difference. Asking directly creates tension. Tension creates resistance. Resistance leads to rejection. But when you invite emotionally, subtly, you flip the entire situation. She doesn't feel like you're forcing anything. It feels organic. She feels like she's choosing. And when a woman feels the choice is hers, she almost never turns it down. Now let me show you how to actually do this. Think about the last time someone tried to sell you something aggressively. The moment you felt pressured, what happened? You backed off, right? Even if you were interested before, the pressure ruined it. The same idea applies to intimacy. When a man asks directly, "Want to come over?" or "Should we take this further?" he's creating a transaction. He's forcing her to think about it consciously. And the conscious mind is where doubts live. But when you create an emotional invitation, you're speaking to her subconscious. You're generating a feeling, not a question. And feelings don't get rejected the same way questions do. The psychology behind the emotional invitation. Here's the psychological principle behind the first method. Give her room to step into closeness emotionally. How? Simple. You build an environment where she feels secure with you, connected to you, and curious about you. Women say yes to intimacy when 3 emotional triggers are activated: security, trust, anticipation. If even one of these is missing, she holds back. But here's the good news. You don't need to plead for these. You create them. And the next thing I'm about to share activates all 3. Listen carefully. Let me explain each trigger because understanding them will change how you move through every interaction. Security doesn't mean she has to know you for years. Security means she feels you won't judge her, pressure her, or make her feel like she made a mistake. Security is built through your emotional steadiness. When you're relaxed, grounded, and not reactive, she feels secure. Trust grows when your words match your actions, when you say you're not in a hurry and you actually don't rush, when you honor her limits without making her feel guilty for having them. Trust is the foundation that allows vulnerability. Anticipation is the chemical spark. It's the buildup that makes intimacy feel exciting instead of robotic. Anticipation is built through restraint, through hints, through the gap between what is and what could be. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Most men focus entirely on creating attraction and ignore these 3 triggers. They try to be impressive, funny, confident, all good things, but they forget that a woman needs to feel secure, trusting, and anticipating before any of that attraction turns into intimacy. The second technique, the gentle pullback effect. This is one of the smoothest psychological methods ever. Here's how it works. Instead of moving toward intimacy, you gently move back. Not in a rude way, not in a cold way, just in a way that shows you're fine with connection but not demanding it. This does 2 things. It instantly removes tension. It creates emotional space where she starts leaning in. Women feel secure with a man who doesn't rush closeness, not because he doesn't want it, but because he respects the natural flow. When she feels you're not trying to get something, she begins moving toward you on her own. And that's exactly when rejection vanishes, because now it becomes her idea. Let me give you a real-world example of how this plays out. You're sitting near a woman. There's chemistry. The conversation is smooth. Most men at this point would escalate physically, move closer, touch more, try to kiss her. But what often happens? She pulls back slightly. Not because she's not interested, but because the escalation felt like pressure. Now, imagine this instead. You're in that same moment, and instead of moving in, you lean back slightly. You pause. You glance away for a second. You create just a little bit of space. What happens in her mind? Suddenly, the pressure disappears. And in that absence of pressure, she becomes aware of her own desire. She thinks, wait, why did he pull back? Does he not want this? And without realizing it, she starts moving toward you. She initiates touch. She closes the gap. This is the gentle pullback effect in action. You're not rejecting her. You're not playing games. You're simply showing that you're comfortable with the natural rhythm of energy, and that comfort makes her feel secure enough to come to you. But the next technique, this one builds anticipation, the strongest desire trigger in female psychology. The third technique, the planted thought shift. This is subtle, psychological, and very effective. You don't ask for intimacy. You simply place a thought in her mind that naturally leads her toward the idea. You use soft, emotionally suggestive statements like, I really like how our energy feels together. You're surprisingly easy to be close to. There's a calmness about you that makes everything feel natural. None of these ask for anything. None of these push, but all of them plant a seed. Women respond to feelings, not commands. When she feels something around you, intimacy becomes her curiosity, not your demand. And that difference is everything. Here's what's happening psychologically. When you use these statements, you're helping her recognize feelings she's already having but hasn't put into words yet. When you say, "I really like how our energy feels together," you're not introducing a new idea. You're voicing something she's been sensing. And when you voice her own feelings back to her, she thinks, "Yes, exactly, that's what I'm feeling too." This creates alignment, and alignment is magnetic. There's also a psychological principle called priming. When you introduce certain words or concepts into a conversation, they become more present in the other person's mind. So when you casually mention words like energy, closeness, connection, natural, those words start coloring how she interprets the moment. She's not being manipulated. She's being guided toward awareness of what's already there between you. And that awareness is what turns a nice conversation into an intimate connection. Now, the next part is crucial, maybe the most crucial in this entire video, because men constantly mess this up. The fourth technique: you must let her feel safe in her feminine energy. Intimacy for women is tied to emotions, but specifically to feminine emotions. Softness, trust, warmth, vulnerability, openness. A woman cannot enter her feminine energy if a man stays anxious, tense, overly sexual, or overly aggressive. Your job is simple. You hold masculine calm. Not forceful, not sexual, not needy, just calm. When a woman feels this calmness in a man, something magical happens. Her guard drops. And when her guard drops, saying yes becomes natural. Not forced, not pressured, just natural. Let me explain what masculine calm actually looks like, because this concept is misunderstood by most men. Masculine calm isn't being silent or emotionless. It's the energy of a man who is present, comfortable in his body, and not worried about outcomes. It's the difference between a man who constantly checks for approval, "Is this okay? Do you like this? Should I do more?" And a man who simply is, allowing the moment to unfold naturally. Women are incredibly sensitive to energy. They can feel when a man is nervous, when he's trying too hard, when he's desperate for validation. And all of those energies push her into her masculine, into her thinking, analyzing, protecting mode. But when you maintain calm, when you're grounded and unhurried, she softens. She relaxes. She enters her feminine, which is where desire lives. This is also why women are attracted to men who seem experienced. Not because experience itself is sexy, but because experienced men tend to be calm. They're not frantically figuring out what to do next. They're just flowing. But now let's talk about the moment most men ruin. The moment they're about to ask. Here's the psychology that saves you from rejection. The fifth technique: never ask for a yes, ask for a feeling. If you ask for a yes, you risk a no. When you ask for a feeling, you invite vulnerability. Instead of saying, "Do you want to?" Say something like, "Does this feel too fast for you? Do you feel comfortable here with me?" See the difference? Instead of pressuring her, you're giving her emotional control. And when you offer control, she feels safer. And when she feels safer, she chooses intimacy herself. This is the difference between rejection and connection. This technique works because it completely reframes the dynamic. You're not asking her to accept or reject you. You're asking her to check in with her own feelings. And that's a much easier question to answer honestly. When you ask, "Do you want to come back to my place?" she has to think, "What will he think if I say yes? What if I say no? What does this mean? Am I ready? Is this too fast?" But when you ask, "Does this feel too fast for you?" she only has to consider one thing: how do I actually feel right now? And here's the beautiful part. If she says, "A little bit, yeah," you haven't been rejected. You've been given information. You can respond with, "That's totally fine. I'm not trying to rush anything. I'm really enjoying just being here with you." Now she feels heard, respected, and safe. And often within minutes, she'll be the one escalating because you've removed all pressure. But we're not done. The next technique is where the real subtle psychology comes in. The sixth technique: mirror her desire back to her. Here, what almost no man understands. A woman doesn't decide on intimacy based on how much you want her. She decides based on how much she feels you want her, without you losing your composure. Meaning, too much desire equals pressure, too little desire equals disinterest. Balanced desire equals attraction. So when she leans closer, touches you, laughs more, looks into your eyes, or becomes softer around you, you simply mirror that energy. Not more, not less. This sends one subconscious message. We're on the same wavelength. This alignment is one of the strongest psychological signals for intimacy. Mirroring is a deeply hardwired social mechanism. From infancy, humans learn connection through mirroring. When a baby smiles and the parent smiles back, the baby learns, I am seen, I am understood, I am safe. The same mechanism is active in adult intimacy. When a woman shows you vulnerability or desire and you mirror it back, not overwhelm it, not ignore it, but match it, she feels understood at a primal level. This is also where most men fail. They either underrespond, making the woman feel foolish for showing interest, or they overrespond, making her feel like she opened a floodgate she can't control. The key is calibration. If she touches your arm, you touch hers. If she holds eye contact for 3 seconds, you hold it for 3 seconds. If she laughs and leans in, you laugh and lean in. This creates a dance. And in that dance, intimacy escalates naturally without anyone having to ask for it. Now let's talk about the final step, the moment that seals it without ever sounding desperate. The 7th technique, acknowledge the moment instead of asking. Moments are emotional. Moments feel real. Moments feel natural, not forced. So instead of asking for intimacy, you simply recognize the moment. This feels really nice. It's crazy how comfortable this feels. You have a really gentle energy right now. When you highlight the moment, you're not asking for intimacy. You're letting the moment invite it. Women follow emotion, and emotion lives in the moment. This removes pressure, removes awkwardness, and removes rejection entirely. And that's how you do it. Here's why this final technique is so powerful. You're removing yourself as the one who wants something. You're not the one desiring, the moment itself is creating the desire. This is a subtle but crucial psychological shift. When you say, do you want to? You're the one wanting. When you say, this feels really nice, the feeling itself becomes the focus. And women are much more comfortable following feelings than following requests. Feelings feel authentic. Requests feel transactional. By naming the moment, you're also creating a shared experience. It's not you wanting her. It's both of you experiencing something together. And that shared experience is the foundation of genuine intimacy. If you learned something new today, if this opened your eyes a little, if it made you see women differently, then don't just leave. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more psychological insights and real-world wisdom. And after you finish this video, don't forget to check out the other videos on the channel.